Basic Education Department has admitted that 31,000 teaching posts across the country have not been filled. This is despite thousands of qualified teachers just sitting at home. Minister Angie
Quality of schooling is one of the country's biggest challenges.
The conditions of schools just vary so considerably across the country.
Currently, about half of the schooling system is in classes of over 40 learners.
And this is mostly in your poorer schools.
But the impact that teachers are able to make in young people's lives as some of the most influential people in your life.
But when researchers started looking at the data, they saw this huge hump of teachers in South Africa that were nearing retirement.
One of the things that came out was that more than half of teachers are going to retire in the next 10 years.
Since 2013 approximately, the Department of Basic Education have been monitoring closely educators leaving the schooling system.
So that was quite a scary finding.
Because at the end of the day, where are we going to find the teachers to replace these ones that are now leaving the system? And that's how the TDD project was born.
So as part of this project, we developed a model to assist us to deal with a very sharp increase in the demand for educators.
In the modeling we did, there are some remarkable, worrying patterns here. We will see the demand for teachers increase substantially over the next decade or so. It's inevitable.
And it's poorly resourced schools that are going to actually suffer from teacher shortages.
It will peak in 2030 at about 17,000 educators retiring each year.
But it was important to not only highlight the fact that some teachers were leaving, but to also understand how do you recruit people to go and teach in places where the lived experiences aren't that great.
So to understand the extent of that, we got survey responses from about 1,500 teachers from all around the country, and we then decided to follow up with telephonic interviews with 80 teachers.
So we also did interviews with 27 teachers in the Eastern Cape, Limpopo and Gauteng.
We wanted to measure two things: job satisfaction and preferences. So in terms of job satisfaction, teachers in poorly resourced schools were more likely to express a desire to leave the profession.
We also found that less than 49% of teachers didn't go into teaching as their first choice.
Another commonly cited reason for job dissatisfaction was the administrative burden that teachers face.
However, on the positive side, the demand and supply model points towards a window of opportunity.
What we can expect over the next decade is for the average cost of educators to remain about the same. And we also have had an oversupply of teachers in recent years, so a reserve pool that we can draw from in the coming years.
And the other really encouraging finding was, and this came up very often, teachers saying that they love the job because of the impact that they're able to make in young people's lives. It enabled them to uplift impoverished communities.
So even though they didn't want to start off being educators, once teachers realized that learners are looking up to them, teachers then have this immense commitment to learners.
And in the modeling we did, we would be able to increase the number of educators from the current 400,000 to about 430,000 by 2030. Ideally, we would like that number to increase to 470,000, because then we would be able to take the learner-educator ratio back to where it was in about 2010.
But we have to keep in mind that 95% of teachers in poorly resourced schools reported that they felt unsafe in their schools.
And then they say, oh, as soon as a new opportunity comes where I want to be, then they leave.
Sadly, most of these teachers expressed a desire to move to better resourced schools.
So from a policy perspective, we have to ask the question, how do you recruit people to go and teach in very rural, remote areas?
So we have to explicitly ask, what could the government do to incentivize teachers to go to those hard-to-start schools?
And how do we get the learner-educator ratio back to what it was in about 2010.